Hello there, Beard here. So good evening, handy listeners, such as you are. Hello, it's been a while. I've got the band back together, so to speak, as of course we have the final wave of Season 3 captains to discuss. So good evening,
Season
Connor.
4.
Season 4, thank you, appreciate that. That's twice I've done that. So good evening, Connor.
Hello!
And good evening to slightly poorly Mr. Benjamin Harris. How are you?
Hello. Please don't call me Benjamin in public. We've been through this.
Oh, do boy. This time you're aware that there are captains. I've not sprung it on you as a surprise.
Some actual homework has been possible.
So we complete the cycle. Ben, let's start with you, because much like your new captain, I'm sure you're ready to explode. Now, by that was sinister. By now, everyone's read the cards, so this isn't going to be a card read. But Soma/Numa seem quite good. Ben, are you happy?
Yeah, a little bit. This is kind of everything I was hoping for, and then a little bit more.
A lot more than I was hoping for.
Yeah, but you play fish. Nobody cares.
Not anymore.
We'll
get to that.
We'll get to that.
We'll need a new Rooney minute.
Yeah, exactly. So where do you see Soma fitting into your team? Like, are you because right now the OPD hasn't changed, which is interesting because right now with the plot cards that have been released are not tournament legal, which I find hilarious. So right now, it may change. I don't know if it will, but right now we're at 2 captains. If it's going to change to 3, I imagine now would be the time. Because
R.I.P. minor guilds, if so.
yeah, 100%. Because as of whenever these models are coming out, which is Friday the 20th, is that right?
Yeah.
Everyone will have them. So if there is a change to the OPD coming, that's the sort of prerequisite moment that would instigate it. So, assuming 2 captains, I'm guessing you're dropping Smoke?
Yeah, me personally, yes. Because it's very much a play style thing. Chatting to other Alchemist players, I dare say the Facebook group is gearing up for another big civil war about this, but it's very much a play style thing.
That is when they're happiest.
Yeah, I mean, but the way you play Smoke, the way you get the most out of Smoke is kind of with compounds kind of hanging back, playing a more reactive game. I'm claiming that pun.
That's what it is. Very good.
But yeah, that's not my jam. I don't want to stand back behind the goalpost. I don't want to be relying on protecting myself with AoEs. I want to be aggressive, trying to dictate the game. And that to me says Soma. That's what this captain's for. Is and kind of in terms of a breakdown, because yes, Midas is right in my wheelhouse. Nimble striker captain.
Yep.
And I think Alchemists now we've got a very good 2-2 game. We do now. Vet Cats. I'm not going to comment here. I have at length in various forums. Yeah. It was a very, very good takeout model. So you start from the premise of a 2-2, and I think for Midas you can flex to a 3-0. Soma lets you flex to a 1-4, and that's how I see my split working out.
And I was quite presumptuous there in assuming that you would be dropping Smoke purely because I know you and I've known you for a long time, and that, like you said, it's a playstyle thing. I can see just as many people still sticking with Smoke and Midas because they cover each other and each other's bad matchups very, very well. Yeah,
absolutely. It's been said that Soma doesn't kind of change the matchup maths any. Kind of their bad matchups are still bad.
I think the one matchup that it swings a bit. I feel like there's some matchups that are probably 55-45 to Midas that are probably closer like 70-30 for Soma. But I do think that Oh, I think Engineers is like pretty even pre-Soma, and I think Soma destroys Engineers.
Yeah.
And Steve Cole and I have talked about that as well. But the question is, and this happens a lot with three captains, is making your even matchups significantly better worth making your bad matchups worse or creating more bad matchups. And I think it honestly depends on, much like most of the three captain guilds, I think which three you play will largely come down to personal preference and the meta you're playing in. Because I think if you're not dealing with Steeljaw or Corsair locally, I think dropping Smoke is a lot easier.
Yeah, like, you say that Engineers Engineers is a considerably better matchup for Alchemists now that Soma is on the scene. However, Engineers are still one of the least represented major guilds on the competitive scene worldwide. I mean, I know certainly in the north of England, with Dave Cameron lurking around, Engineers always have to be taken into consideration, because the man will turn up to an opening of a hat, which is admirable. Would that I had the same amount of time that he does.
Indeed.
So, it's not just a case of how those matchups skew, but frankly, like, your own local meta. Like, if you're not going to see Engineers, then why bother making that matchup so much better?
I do also think that playstyle is a huge part of it. Because, I played Smoke and I could kind of get to grips with it, but I just didn't enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
So, but playing, I've talked a fair bit to Luke from Glory Goals on the subject, and Steve Cole as well. And I'm not a million miles away from them in terms of kind of how I'd build a Smoke team, but I'm just utterly incapable of playing that way. That's not my style at all.
Yep.
So, at the moment I'm playing games, I'd say probably it's 95% Midas, 5% Smoke, because I just don't get much out of Smoke.
Yeah.
Whereas... And I think one of the other interesting things is, for a lot of people who originally got into Alchemists for playing football-y Smoke or playing Midas, I don't think those are necessarily going to be the people where Soma becomes an absolute terror, because I think Midas and Soma have similar guilds they like to play into, but I know there are a lot of people who are not typical Alchemist players, or typical Midas players at least, or people who liked really defensive Smoke, who will be playing a lot of Soma now, and I think Soma is going to be a terror, and I think Soma, especially with Vet Cat in his current form, definitely push Alchemists to top tier team.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It physically hurts me to do it. I also agree.
and I also think the Vet Cat issue, and it is an issue, kind of distracts from the fact that having a Tax 6 anatomical squatty with a 4-long book is basically the issue that Rivet had before her nerf. With very slightly more setup. But I don't
think it's very slightly more set up. I mean, the Alchemist squaddies have now gone into a situation where they have brewer books, and a Tac 9 Venin, a Tac 7 Mercury, Tac 7 Vitriol, Tac 6 Cami, like we've said.
Tac 6 Cami is a night.
Like, these are all going to be very, very powerful squaddies, and Soma is in a position to not only, through the use of Backdraft, give them that tack buff with a degree of setup, it has to be said, but it is hardly the most egregious amount of setup.
Well, and a lot of the squaddies do set it up themselves as well.
Yeah, I think as soon as you've got Mercury, Cami, and Vitriol in a team, and that doesn't sound like a bad team to me. As someone that doesn't play Alchemists, like, those three models do work, and then Catalyst of choice, probably Vet, unless you're playing a new guy. All of those models put out burning, all of them, and with
you say that, but it's not as it's not as simple. If you want kind of everlasting burning, Cami can do it. Because of chemical ordnance, but Mercury doesn't have burning strike, so needs Inferno. Vitriol doesn't have burning strike.
No, but Vitriol has an AoE heroic, which just throws burning out wherever she wants it.
But again, it's not as simple as kind of point and click.
It's no. To be fair, I'm not saying these three models mean that your opponent's team is on fire constantly, because that's demonstrably not true. But it gives you the tools with which to be able to access everything, and there's going to
absolutely, yeah.
And a lot of the time, you only need the one swing at that high tack, especially for the football-y pieces.
Yes,
like you look at Cammy. If she can charge someone on fire, she's probably wrapping to the tackle, and then double reposition.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to hold my hands up. I've played a couple of games with Soma, and two, and the second one was into Tapper Brewers.
Oh, this terrifies me.
Yeah, Cammy kicks into the team, ball ends up on Mash. Inferno Cammy then goes in, takes half of Spigot's health off him, and the ball off Mash, and scores. With flaming everywhere. Yeah. And I'm just looking at this crater going, this is fine.
I honestly think Soma without Numa is still probably a top half captain in the game.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even include the fact that Numa may have the best playbook in Guild Ball when you consider that he's basically automatically tack 8. And having a momentous 3 damage push dodge on 2, and a momentous double push double dodge on 4 with typical tack 8 is insane.
When you said to me, Panzer, played a game today and Numa one-rounded Tapper.
Yep. And the game before that, Numa one-rounded Rivet. So
and it's Rivet and Tapper are amongst the single most resilient captains in the game.
Oh yeah, but I'd be the first to admit those were kind of magic Christmas tree land setups.
For sure.
People are going to have to start learning against alchemists that if Soma's on the pitch, you need to be prepared for the chance this flaming torch is going to come out of the backfield and light your captain up.
Yeah, and the other thing is
not necessarily something people are set up for yet.
Well, and the team is unbearably efficient too. Numa's a 4/4, so doesn't take any influence to be fully stacked. That cat needs 1 extra influence, which you can just take off your mascot, and then you basically can still fully stack 2 other squaddies, I think.
Yeah, and Vitriol, and also don't forget Beaker Keeper from from Flask, so character plays become free. So you can fully stack
Vitriol, Numa, Vet Cat, and put 3 on Crucible.
That seems all right.
On a turn. And have all the free things you get from pulling conditions.
Yeah, 3 on Crucible is fully stacking her, so yeah.
The team actually reminds me a bit of Pre-Errata Thresher. Not so much Thresher himself, but that team felt like it was playing with 18 influence.
It always had the influence that it needed.
Yeah. But let's not forget here that Soma's a coach. While Soma, the model, is on the pitch, they're not doing anything themselves. They're not punching anybody. They're not scoring it. It's a support piece to make other models better.
But both Nitro and Raging Fire are spectacular character plays for a coach to have.
Oh, absolutely,
and to be honest,
much like, say, Malice on Morn was pretty damn good.
Yeah, but the difference between Soma and Morn is Soma's a lot more like Rivet. Although Rivet's not a coach, most of the game Rivet doesn't get a ton of influence, and then one turn you stack 6 on her and she kills someone and gets a goal, or kills someone and sets something up. And yeah, technically with Rivet that can happen more than once a game, but it usually doesn't. And it's kind of the same with Soma, where yes, Numa only really comes out once, but that's really all you need. You can get an early goal, which is easy. That cat kills anyone, which again, not too hard. Then the 6-point Numa activation is already on the board, and your opponent has to watch out for it.
So
yeah,
I don't think any of this is us going, we are not the Chicken Little podcast. There is no sky falling in. If a problem presents itself over a period of time, we all have the faith that it will be dealt with. Certainly Soma and Numa are in the conversation for best captains in the game.
Would agree with that.
And like you said, Alchemists, an already very, very strong guild, are now firmly ensconced in the upper echelons of a tier system if you subscribe to such a thing, which many of us do.
Connor.
So
I like lists. What can I say?
Yeah, no, it's a good discussion point. So what when you say Ben, people aren't prepared for Soma and Numa. How do they prepare for Soma and Numa? What is the sort of things that we should be having in on our team? Because looking at Soma, 4-1, 16 boxes, a garbage counter-attack.
Yeah.
Because I did this in the podcast with Jamie and Sherwin, but just to make absolutely clear, you cannot use Gimme Fuel or Backdraft on a counter-attack because you are declaring a counter-attack, not declaring an attack, and that key word there is declare. So Soma is tack 4 on that counter unless you've got crowd outs or singled outs or whatever, and a double dodge on 3. Like if you can get into Soma, they're dying. But that 2-inch Burning Spirit is so good at reducing the threat ranges of what people can get into you.
But
that is going to ruin people's days too.
Yeah.
I remember
it already did with Mercury.
Yeah, but Mercury didn't see that much play, and I think it's one of it's really not my favorite rule because it is just such a absolutely brutal feeling, and often you don't notice till after you've moved the model, which is really rough.
I've got to be honest, it's one of those ones I take great pains to make sure my opponent's aware of, kind of before we kick off, you need to know about this and how this works.
Yeah.
But, that's me personally.
Because it's not even unpredictable, which is potentially, I've wasted a charge. This is, I've wasted a charge and I'm on fire.
Yeah.
Which then just turns on the rest of the team. People are going to need to get to Soma fast. So we're looking at potentially out of activation movement and long threat ranges, either through character plays or through model movement. So are we looking at Scalpel and Fillet as being
Fillet
models?
Seems very, very strong into Soma to me.
Divana.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Any kind of tech you have for dealing with a backfield piece applies doubly here. But the difference is, I guess it's just making sure whilst you're in the process of reaching into the backfield, don't leave a clear line straight back out of it again.
Either for a goal path or for Vet Cat just to remove you. Yeah.
Or for Numa just to go, all right, excellent, perfect opportunity, whoosh.
Yeah, that's the big issue with Soma, I think, is normally if you fail to kill a captain, they're still going to be very low on health and in a lot of danger. If you leave Soma on 1 or 2, just legendaries and Numa comes in on 10, and then when Soma comes back on the pitch later, you'll be back at 8. Which is something you really need to consider when going for an assassination run on Soma, is if you don't hit it, not only are you probably losing whatever went in on him to Vet Cat, which means you're also losing the momentum race, but you're also getting basically nothing for it.
Yeah. So, sorry, Ben, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think kind of, a lot of the tactics people used to have for dealing with, furious models and furious missiles, you're going to need to dust off again, because not only have you got Numa now, who's furious, Union are on the comeback, and their other captain, Veteran Rage, is furious, I believe, as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the likes of model, so Ghast with fear, and things along those lines, or just the 2-inch engagement to lock it down because he is a 1-inch engagement.
Yeah, exactly.
Model. Yeah, okay.
Because you can negate a lot of the damage by taking that charge away. By forcing them to use the advance to get in, because of course Numa can't use Nitro.
No.
And if you use the Soma activation to use Nitro, then Numa's got one swing and you've wasted your time.
Yeah.
So a lot of the standard stuff you have to gum up those furious models, people will need to look at again.
So where are their bad matchups?
I think things like scrum teams, get kind of with Numa being a 4-1 and 10 wounds. Any kind of sustained counterattack, they're going down and it's going to hurt.
But also, then are those not the matchups, Ben, that you're bringing in Midas as a bunker breaker anyway, so you're unlikely to see Soma on the pitch?
Possibly, but it's just, you know, you've got to be careful that you don't bite off more than you can chew. I think with Soma and Numa both, and that's going to be the initial learning curve.
Fair.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
I
Connor?
think I would say teams that can out threat Soma and Numa while keeping the ball safe, which could potentially be like Union, Butchers, Brewers, but keeping the ball safe is not very easy against Alchemists, although it is a little bit easier against Soma than it is against Midas, but not that much.
Why do you say that?
Why is it easier, or why not that much?
We're purely talking of Midas's playbook and his ability to just get anywhere on the pitch, or is there?
Midas's ability to take 6 influence, charge someone, get knocked out, where they go back in and tackle again is really good. Also, Lure of Gold is better to get 2 strikers in your face quickly than Soma's thing, potentially.
Yes, it's more efficient, certainly, for moving one model further.
But so I think that's why. But then at the same time, your strikers can potentially be a lot better at digging the ball out. So even if they don't get there as easily, they might be better at getting it once they're there. So I think it depends on the matchup. But I do think that Numa still easily is a 2-2 team if they want to be.
Yeah, that's what I said right at the start. You know, Alchemists, no matter which captain, you're shooting for 2-2. And then depending on your captain is which way it's easier for you to flex.
Yeah.
Speaking then of the advantages of having a captain that you can pour 6 influence through and go and hunt the ball down, let's have a chat about greed. Because it's funny you mentioned that, Connor, because that for me has always been the big weakness of the Union, that they don't have the ability to pour 6 influence through a captain model to go and get the ball and do 6-point activations and ridiculousness like that. And with the introduction of veteran captain greed, they still don't have that. You know.
You just get lucky with your knockdown scatters and you'll be fine.
You're showing it in a wind finder again. But I know I was very much looking forward to veteran captain greed, and whilst I haven't been left flat by any stretch of the imagination, I know you're very excited with the introduction of VCG, and as you intimated earlier, you will no longer be playing Fish, but instead moving to the Union. So do you want to talk to us about why has greed got you so excited?
Yeah, so obviously the media team has seen these cards a bit earlier than the general public.
Yeah, about a week before the festival first came out, so not a huge amount of time.
And Steve Cole of Singled Out fame and I have been discussing a lot of greed.
I think he's arguably more famous for being really bloody good at Guild Ball. But anyway.
No, I think he's more famous for that English accent on Singled Out now.
I haven't heard that monstrosity yet, but later.
Yeah. But so it's funny you say that about not being as excited as you thought you might be, because I'm basically the opposite. I had no excitement.
We've really flipped on this.
And where you said you think one of the issues of Union had was not being able to get a captain to get the ball, which is true. For me and many other people who've played some Union, I think the biggest issue with Union is how much worse the team felt when they kicked.
100%.
Especially Vet Rage. And a lot of people didn't really enjoy playing Blackheart because his playbook feels so bad until you hit the top of it. And because a lot of his power lies in very defensive things. Like being able to keep the ball safe with his legendary and with his ability to move the ball.
Let's let me show it. Like Blackheart's playbook is spectacular as long as you hit 4 net hits on your first attack.
Well, and it's spectacular if you've got the ball already or want to go on a goal run.
And you just want the double dodge result. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. But the big thing is, like, a lot of people just don't find Blackheart that fun. I actually do like Blackheart, but a lot of people don't. And Vet Rage really does not like kicking compared to receiving. Vet Captain Greed, however, may be one of the best kicking captains in the game. up there with like Rivet and Shaft and Midas. And basically the key to and Festival, to be honest, who we'll get to later. And basically the main reason for that is trust. Is it do the thing? Yeah, do the thing, which basically means you get 2 activations on a model because you only have 5 on the board.
Yep.
And although everyone keeps comparing it to Superior Strategy,
it's a terrible comparison.
A lot more similar to Midnight Offering.
Yep.
But
absolutely.
Anywhere on the board, and there's no cost whatsoever. So
and he doesn't even have to be on the pitch. Like, yeah. I really have to stress this.
This is like, really big.
Like, yeah, this is massive. If you compare the global coach rules that all these other new captains have, they all say the same thing. Whilst this model is on the pitch, and I would say maybe 75 to 80% of Greed's power budget is in Do the Thing.
Yeah, and Do the Thing is what makes Greed exciting. So if you take that off,
Connor, stop. Just want to I'll finish my point, and then you can carry on. The fact, like, look at Greed's card. It does not say whilst this model is on the pitch. It works if he's taken out. That's it. Like, you have captains applying rules to the game while they're not on the pitch. This is a big deal. Right, Connor, go.
I swear other captains have had that before.
Name one.
Have they not?
No. This is a really nice sort of harken back to the fact that you could assign Greed influence whilst he wasn't on the pitch in his form with Avarice and Greed.
Which we'll never see play ever again, sadly.
And that is part of it for me. But anyway, you carry on with your excitement and I'll lament my loss of the big fella.
Yeah, so if Greed were a normal captain that you had to play a mascot with, I actually think he would be pretty terrible.
Okay.
But because of the ability to double move models, your threat ranges are incredibly unpredictable. You can hit and run to a level that is pretty much unheard of in the game, especially if you had a model that, say could already dodge 8 inches at the end of its activation.
Oh yeah, like Minx just has a casual 18 inches of jog now. Like, that's okay. That's fine. That's fine.
My personal favorite is you can jog Fangtooth 20 inches a turn.
Oh, that is hilarious!
Great.
I hadn't.
What was all that about? What was all that about Greed helping to stop standoff? Greed is the standoff.
Yeah, I do have to admit that was pretty funny because, yes, in theory you could use that to break a standoff, but Greed is probably the king of the standoffs now.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that means I see less Corker, I'm all in favour of, but this is silly.
So, forward minions is probably the second best thing on his card. Having a 6-inch pulse of +2 move that costs the same as Quickfoot is absolutely bonkers. It's better than Hammer's Legendary, it's better than Ferrite's Legendary, and it costs 2 influence.
Well, like, hang on now. Because it does cost more than Quickfoot in Union, because Quickfoot in Union is free, because Talisman is a thing. So
it also stacks with Quickfoot.
It does stack with it, yes. Like, which is, I think Grace is going to be a very interesting. She goes to what, 12 inches of jog now, or something stupid like that.
Oh, who knows?
Like,
that conversation we were having about out-threating Soma and Numa.
Yeah,
here we are.
I think
10 inch.
Midas is
Grace is a
definitely
10-inch jog. Yeah.
I mean, Vet Greed is just great.
There's so many things. Like, the 2 big ones that immediately spring off the page in terms of double activations are Hemlock and Rage. Hemlock, now we're back to old blind of being able to walk forward, blind someone, and then walk away again, because like, even if you knock down her at range, she has Magical Brew, so will clear conditions and heal. That's not once per turn. She can do that twice if you give her the Do the Thing second activation. So Hemlock can heal 12 health a turn, which is more than she has, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I think she has 12 now.
Yeah, Rage being able to charge twice with Furious Berserks, and of course Greed has the Persuasion to push him out again should he get stuck somewhere, which is fantastic. There is a really interesting conversation, I have to say, on the Union Facebook page talking about whether or not you can carry over the Berserk between activations, because it's always said, like, you know, that second attack you have with Berserk, there's nothing that states you have to take it at the same time as long as you do it within his activation. Well, now he potentially has 2, so do I have to use it all in his first activation? Or
I feel like that should have been cleared up before at some point, but
yeah.
I guess it hasn't been. So
when would it come up before?
Yeah, that's it.
I was thinking maybe someone with Berserk was in an honor team, but I don't think Rage ever was.
No, Rage was never in Masons. So this is like, normally with rules conversations, I'm more than happy to kind of like push, you know, roll my sleeves up and jump in and go, I think it's this, and here are my reasons, and here's the bit in the rule book that sets the precedent. I don't think there is one on this. So
no, I think it'll be whichever way they FAQ it. Like, yeah. I think they can make that choice, and either way they rule it is fine. I like, kind of hope you can't bank it between activations, just because I think Rage is powerful enough with Creed.
I mean, even if you do, then your opponent has the opportunity to kill him and completely waste it. So there is going to be a degree of risk reward, which I'm okay with. Like it's like when Veteran Chisel came out and we had 2 different versions of Goad. There was that moment where we didn't know whether or not they stacked, and I could honestly have seen it go either way because they were named differently and therefore didn't contravene the rules of the same name. Can't stack a precedent. So honestly, this thing with Rage, I could see go either way. Right now, there isn't an official ruling on it. Speculation on Facebook is going to be purely that. And hopefully we'll see that covered in an FAQ when there's a next FAQ. That's it, sort of moving away from like Hemlock and Rages, I think, who are the obvious examples of Do the Thing. Like, Benediction does very well off Do the Thing, I think, with just setting up braced and then moving away from the opponents and stuff like that.
Yeah, being able to put up all his defensive tech, and if they get through it, just being able to move the ball. However,
with his free pass,
I actually think Benediction is a lot less relevant in Veteran Captain Greed than in the other 2 captains for a couple reasons. One is both Blackheart and Vet Rage kind of want setup pieces, whereas I think Vet Captain Greed is a setup piece. It's got a momentous push on 1 and a knockdown on 2 with tax 6 2-inch reach. By the way, it's tax 6 because of shelling out, so he never really is tax 5.
He's just always tax 6. Yeah.
I think of the 3 captains, Strongbox has the weakest playbook in optimal situations, but it is very reliable.
Yep.
And having a low knockdown in Union is a big deal, because the only other one you have is Fangtooth, and he would much rather be doing damage with that.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be using... If you can make Fangtooth use that knockdown, then that's 30% of his damage output gone.
Exactly. And I think with... unlike the other 2 captains, which I don't think... Well, Vet Rage especially, I do not think plays a 2-2 game well at all.
No.
I think Veteran Captain Greed does, because being able to have 2 activations on a model really enables snapback goals, as does having like an entire team with +2 move. +4 if you play Grace. So just to go through the team's kickoff quickly, you can play a list of Grace, Decimate, Fangtooth, and Minx, let's just say. And you can basically put second wind on Minx, +4 move on Minx, and +4 move on Fangtooth. Sorry, +6 move with his heroic.
Yep.
And basically Minx can go in, set up someone, do a ton of damage, escape to complete safety, and then you're
talking about axe throw here, I'm guessing. It
depends on the model.
In case anyone's not following along with your line of thinking, we're talking essentially about putting snared on a model and then leaving them.
Yeah, so you can either, depending how slow the model is, go in on them properly and still end up 9-ish inches away, maybe 10 if you hit a momentous damage dodge at the end. And then if they want to then overextend to go into you, Fangtooth kills them anyway. So I think it's a really interesting team. I think their kickoff pressures might be a bit over the top, but they're going to be super fun to play. And I think Original Rage and Minx just make your damage output absolutely insane, even without the damage dealing of a Vet Rage. And it gives you 2 slots to just kind of play whatever you want. Like, Steve and I have been talking a lot about Mist, who no one's really been playing in Union recently. No. But Mist being able to reposition himself 8 to 10 inches for free is a lot better for ball pressure. And it also allows you to snap back incredibly efficiently.
It can't be stressed how good forward minions is. Like, we used to present a podcast where we would, for better or worse, choose something in a different game and argue between ourselves over it being the best thing in the game. And the rules of the podcast were that we always had to disagree with each other, something that comes very naturally to Conor and I. I would happily hang my hat that forward minions is amongst the best buff in the game.
I would agree.
It's a 6-inch pulse. Go and find another speed buff in this game that's a pulse and not an aura. Like, it's insanely good. Like, having the fact that Greed doesn't even have to be there after he's fired this off. You do not have to worry about his positioning that turn. He can use forward minions and then just walk away. And let everyone else deal with everything. That's phenomenal. On a 40mm base with a 6-inch pulse. Like, we often talk about how good and integral Times Called is to the Brewers. That is a 4-inch aura on a 30mm model. This is so much better. Like, as someone that spent a lot of time playing Brewers and the key positioning, you have to constantly be thinking, is Spigot in the right place? Are my models correctly positioned around Spigot so that I'm going to be able to threat properly? Forward Millions is spectacularly good. Like, just so good. And then Persuasion on top. I think this is more likely going to be used on friendly models over enemy, but you have that option. You have the ability to roll a dice.
Well, also, don't forget that Persuasion exists in a team that actually has a decent amount of pushes, and more importantly, has access to Snare and has access to Fangtooth. So if someone's, say, 14 inches away from the edge of the... Say Vet Cat is 14 inches away from the edge of the pitch. Greed charges him, hits the double push, persuasions him, and then Fangtooth charges and wraps to the double unmasking and can knock him another 6 inches or so.
7 with a double unmasking. Like, it's all there. Everything is there on the character sheet. I do think it's hilarious that Strongbox has gotten quicker and his playbook has gotten worse.
Yeah, that is pretty fun.
Like, the Tortoise was a 3-5 move with a knockdown on 1 and 2 damage on 2. And they've kind of like been moved up into his playbook, which I think is quite funny. But yeah, like, Greed is... So what do we, the biggest thing, and I've been holding this point in for ages now, is both when you play Blackheart and Rage, you want the ball and you want to never ever give up possession of the ball because of the momentum generation and the positioning benefits that it gives you. And I think with Veteran Captain Greed, you're now in a sort of unique position for a Union team, whereas you can comfortably not be in possession of the ball.
Oh, and that actually brings up something that I hadn't really thought about until Steve got his first practice games in with him and we were talking. Greed does not want to receive because he plays a team that likes to bunch around him for the speed buffs. And if you're only playing 5 models, your ability to secure the ball receiving is a struggle, especially if you're playing models like Greed and Fangtooth. Like, yes, Fangtooth becomes incredibly quick, but he is not at the start. So you're relying on, say, a model like Minx to get the ball, and then you're losing all of Minx's output.
And it's not like you have, say, in Morticians, where you just have a casual 8-inch jog bird that can go and get the ball. Even someone like Quaff can go 8 inches, and Quaff can retrieve the ball from 9 inches away.
Mascots are very good for that.
Mascots are exceptional for receiving the ball and receiving kickoff pieces, so not having one is significant. So it does really become Greed, kickoff, Rage, receive.
Which makes for a very interesting dynamic, because I think there are teams that are much more scared of one of them than the other. So you almost get to decide if you win the kickoff which captain you want to face.
Yes.
So, like, if I'm playing something like Masons, I would much rather receive the ball and play hammer into greed. Whereas if I'm playing something like fish, or maybe order, I haven't decided with order, I'd want to kick, because then you get the football pressure on them, and they don't look like they deal with that super well.
So when we talked about Soma and Numa, what is the sort of thing that you want to be doing into them? So with veteran captain greed, what we're really talking about here is kick, is put them on the back foot and high pressure football as much as possible. But if they score the first goal, which if they're kicking is quite probable with missed marauding, you can't get into that snapback volley with them.
Yeah. The other thing I think that they can that is quite good into greed is things that basically neutralize the kicking model that isn't to do with speed, because moving them out of position or debuffing their speed just isn't really relevant. No. But tack debuffs against a TAC 5 Minx are very relevant. So if you can hit them with a blind,
yes, I was just gonna say,
that makes a big difference. Or one of my personal things I think will be quite fun, now that I'm looking at messing with some more teams as well as Union, is playing Corbelli and hitting Minx or whoever kicks with Goad, and then since you have the ball, using your abilities to then dodge the monkey 8 inches to the side of the pitch, so the only place Minx can go is very unhelpful.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's definitely counterplay.
Yeah, no, there's definitely counterplay. I do think that greed is exceptional. I have, I've put avarice and greed in nearly every single Union team I've ever played, and I think you're absolutely right, Panzer. We're never going to see avarice again. He's been fairly absent from most rosters in season 4 anyway. This is really a big nail in the coffin for a big lad, which I'm a bit sad.
It is a bummer, because it's a great model too. And it's been such a big part of competitive Guild Ball since Season 1 until Season 4.
Yeah, this is a very comprehensive way now of Steamforge no longer having to balance a problem model.
Yeah.
Just don't need to do it anymore. Are there bad matchups? So we're saying high pressure football into greed is probably the way to go. Are there any therefore particularly bad matchups for them? I guess in many ways, sure. Honor, the queen of the double activation.
Yeah, Honor Shark seems quite good into greed. Also, weirdly, I think that the big downside of playing greed and Vet Rage, which I think is going to be the most common combo, because one always wants to receive and one always wants to kick, is that it actually makes you a bit more vulnerable to aggressive football.
Because both of those, Rage really suffers to aggressive football. That's why having Pride in Union was such a big deal.
Yeah, and I think, you can... But the difference with Greed is I think you just have to play a 2-2 game and rely on Decimate, Minx, Mist, whoever. Their team's so fast, Grace, to score snapbacks and whatnot. But I do think that that's an issue. And I think captains that can keep up to the damage of Union and get on top of them quickly. I am fascinated to see what a Greed into, say, Festival or into Cook's team is going to be like. Because I think you need to rush them down, because no one's going to play hit and run better than Union now. Not even Corker.
No. Union have not been massively part of the meta. They're even after the season 4.2 buff, which was significant, they are still...
Massive.
Say again? Massive.
I said it was absolutely massive.
They're still not... if you look at the Snowflake report that I produce every Monday, or just the Longshanks data in general, Union, despite having a 55% play rate, are still well below. Cooks are being played more than Union.
Yeah.
Hunters are being paid more than Union. Brewers are being paid. Engineers are being paid more than Union. Morticians and butchers, both two teams who have really fallen off since like their heyday at 4.0, are being played more than Union. Only really the minor guilds and blacksmiths are played less than they are. Is this going to be the thing that brings them back into the competitive scene?
I think to some extent, yes, because I think one of the reasons we haven't seen it much Union is basically they haven't gotten a new model that they kept since Grace.
Yeah, Grace
that's
and
not
Benny.
even that late in season 3.
No, that was just that was just as I was getting into Guild Ball was Vengeance 2. That's when the twins were released.
Yeah, I mean that's a long time ago.
Is it just me, or does Greed not actually kind of address the Union's fundamental weaknesses? I mean, I see him as a bit of a support captain. Yeah, they make the existing players even better, but you've still got those weaknesses. And that kind of, you've got one striker in Mist. You're not particularly resilient against hard football generally, and I think kind of having Vet Rage on the receive and Greed on the kick is going to make you pretty predictable.
That's interesting because certainly, like the accepted wisdom of where the Union's weaknesses was poor kickoff pressure, and I think in some respects, Greed really does address that through both multiple activations and the phenomenal forward minions. What are the other weaknesses that you're referring to?
I think for me it was still kind of the Union's football pressure. As a football team playing into them, I was always fairly sure I'd be able to get that ball back at some point.
Fair.
And equally, you could maybe leave. You wouldn't have to worry particularly about the Union making a goal run because they wouldn't do it. And I'm still not sure that's changed overly.
That's true.
Conor can tell me if I'm wrong, but
I think. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if they form the Benediction bunker, Benny in cover with braced up, sat on the ball with a couple of 2-inch models around him, be that Gutter or even Fangtooth for Foul Loader, despite being a 1-inch model, you as an Alchemist player can just Crucible it out, which is fairly unique to you. I suppose Morts can do it maybe with Puppet Master and
but you won't see Obulus into Union. I don't think.
But kind of by the same token, if they're putting half the team to keep the ball safe, that leaves you free to gang up on everybody else, doesn't it?
Well, not if they can reposition 8 inches after they've activated.
Yeah, which they okay.
I take your point about resilience.
I think a lot of the power comes from that.
Yeah, I do take your point about the resilience that they are a jack of all trades, master of none guild.
My personal thought on them and in the terms of ball playing is you kind of want to keep the ball dead turn 1, and after that I think you're okay with it being live in Greed because you can snap back so exceedingly well.
Yeah.
And because they are so not reliant on the ball for threat range extension, I think it's quite easy to just park the ball in the corner and then play 4 on 6. The only issue is, and this is an issue, not having a mascot to be able to hold the ball in the corner is another reason I think you want to be playing the ball in Vet Greed. Because otherwise, I mean, you're wasting someone important to do it. Which is why I like Decimate and Mist in the team.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see Union actually hit the table, because I think I've played Dave Marketson a couple of times, and that's it. I've not seen them at all in any other way, shape, or
Dave
form.
Is super excited about
I'm sure
this
Dave
new captain, because he was getting so sick of playing Blackheart and accepted that you basically can't play Rage while kicking. So he is very excited to drop Blackheart.
Yeah, it'll be good to see, because that's the thing, you're trying to formulate weaknesses based, in my case, on 2 games and some theory ball.
Sure.
They're one of those teams. It's very hard to give a kind of an informed take on because you haven't got much of a reference base.
Well, and also just because the fact so much of their power basically comes from the unpredictability of having two activations, it's really hard to tell how good they are until they hit the tabletop. If I had to guess, I think they're going to be one of the top teams in the game, but I also could see their weakness to ball pressure ending up being a bigger issue than I think it is.
Okay. I think when we've talked about these three captains, it may be good to have like a 5-10 minute chat about the meta as a whole. Because, of course, with the introduction of the game plan cards and with these three captains, we're not in a 4.3, but we're certainly in a 4.25. The game is forever changed to how it was a month ago. Is anything you want to add on VCG before we move on? Have we settled on VCG or is it Vetbox? Like, what's the nomenclature?
I think VCG is becoming the most common one, but some people like to honor Strongbox more than that.
Well, there is more Strongbox than there is Greed, I guess.
So, short answer: we still can't agree on anything.
Well, good. I wouldn't want it to be just two. I wouldn't want it just three men convivially agreeing with each other.
Yeah, that's not us. That's not our niche.
Festival then. In all honesty, does it matter?
So, yeah, well, I must admit,
I don't want to be cruel, but
I still stand by. You take Festival and you put Festival in a team with squaddies that want to move. Festival's fantastic, but you show me a Farmers team that wants to cross the halfway line.
I love her. I think she's brilliant. Like it's worked out quite nicely in this release of captains because Ben's excited about Soma Numa. Connor's going to be playing Vetbox, and of the three of them, like the ones that make me maybe change what I'm playing at the moment, because although I've been playing Masons for a while now, I think Masons are about to have a very bad couple of months. I really like what Festival does, and I like her design and her character, and the model is gorgeous. I cannot wait for that to come through so I can paint it. But in all honesty, is it not just still going to be Thresher all the time?
I've come around on this a little bit since I first looked at the card. So, and again, bringing up Dave Margetson, he played a Festival game into Navigators.
Okay.
Traditionally, Bryce gets dunked by Navigators, which is why they'll never get buffed. Despite being a pretty terrible team.
We love you, Bryce.
Basically had his whole team on the center line first activation of the game. And for teams like Navigators, who don't have any sort of out-of-activation passing, they're kind of dead in the water at that point. Like, they don't have the ability to then pass the ball to score. They can't avoid the team quickly enough, and he just ran over them. And I actually think that's where one of the strengths of Festival is against teams that want to play the ball, having your entire team in their face immediately, if you can't really threaten to kill them, is really good. And I know it's not exciting to basically say Festival is a walking legendary, but it's a really good legendary.
It's are you? If I was to use the expression "durdling," are you familiar with what that means?
Nope.
Right. So durdling is a thing from Magic, where particularly in multiplayer games like Brawl or Commander, where people spend the first 5 turns just going, I'm going to put this land out, I'm going to put this mana rock out, pass the turn, and just like the first 5 turns are just kind of like convivial, easing yourself into it. No one's really doing anything, just kind of setting themselves up for when the game begins proper. And I think there's a lot of that in Guild Ball on turn 1. Like, some people are going to go hammer and tongs and like try and score from the kickoff, and some people are just going to kind of bimble around and get themselves set up and ready for like playing the game turn 2. And Festival, I think, is brilliant for breaking that, for exactly as you say. Just going, here we are, like, we're getting started. Like, here's my team, off you go. Particularly when Festival, if you combine with another legendary that doesn't see a lot of play in Farmers currently in Veteran Honor, what was it we worked out? That you can send Windle 25 inches?
Something absolutely silly.
Yeah, but all that means is you get Windle killed before he swings at anybody.
But that's without Windle activating.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a good idea.
So... Windle's
an idea.
But I think Windle... So my thought on Festival is you have to play Windle, because if you don't, your team just doesn't have
the
output.
Yeah.
And if you're playing Windle in a team that can't give him tough hide, he's going to die a lot. Yep. In which case, I would play Amber, because that attack 7 Amber becomes a lot better.
Oh, that's
and
really
also,
good.
Amber getting in your face early. She's one of the best ball recovery models in the team, which doesn't say much. But that being said, it is a thing. And I think, to me, Windle, Amber, Plowman, and a flex slot is kind of where I see Festival sitting.
Yeah.
And against teams that can't, like, just kill farmers super quickly, I think
that'll be
good.
everybody, isn't it?
Well,
Depends
I think teams like... I would not throw my team directly at Brewers or Ox Butchers, let's put it that way.
Any butchers.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, if one of your models goes down, fine. But so the issues I have with Festival are not really to do with Festival. They're more to do with the team around her. And I think Pete Williamson was expressing similar in the Discord, which is that the people you're throwing forward aren't that independently scary. And because of that, the aggressive throwing your team at the opponent isn't as scary as when Vet Greed does it, because Minx and Fangtooth are a lot scarier than Windle and Amber.
Yeah.
And a lot harder to control. And I think that's, to me, I think Festival could potentially shine more in 6 months when the team has a couple more additions.
Oh, when the Shepherds have come along. Yeah, that's a very fair point.
I'm pretty sure they've confirmed that Shearer... Is it Shearer?
It
the
is
striker?
Shearer. Yep.
I'm pretty sure they confirmed that he's one of the crossovers. And
I think they did too,
having another striker in the team
that's 5 inches
will make
forward.
them could potentially make them a lot stronger for throwing themselves at you quickly. If you can get Amber and another striker in your face quick, you're putting a lot of ball pressure and killing pressure on the opponent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the moment, with the toolbox that farmers have, with the squaddies that farmers have, her biggest problem is still the old dead guy in the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I can't see that she kind of takes the lead over him in more than, say, maybe 3-4 matchups,
which is 3 or 4 more than Grange.
Well, you say that like Grange is seeing more play. People are beginning to put the time and the investment into having a Grange team and finding places in tournaments where they prefer him over Thresher. Good friend of ours and friend of the channel, Dom Westland, has those situations where he plays Grange and has got good results with Grange.
Yes. I think the problem is Grange has very specific matchups he can play in, and he can only play in them if you receive.
Yes.
Whereas Festival can kick. So I think I think Thresher's worst matchup has been Corker to a lot of people, and aggro football. But with Corker particularly, Festival can get into his bunker a lot faster and ignore the tough hide.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see Festival more than you saw Grange, but Thresher will still be the dominant cap.
I think we're making different points, and I'm not disagreeing with you. But my main thing here is that people have just spent 6 months unlocking Grange. They're going to want to carry on using him because they've put that time and that investment in. It's like, I'm only now just beginning to see the results and understanding fully where I want to be using this captain. I'm not changing again. Like,
I mean,
yeah, and Festival will take an investment of time and practice.
Absolutely,
a huge. But I still think she could well be worth it. But the question is what she wants to do, what the farmers at the moment want to do, and that's still my massive doubt.
She's really good into engineers, particularly Rivet. She's really good into brewers, particularly Corker, because both hair in the fields and tools are sharp are brilliant character plays. Festival finally gives the guild attack buff, despite the fact that we were told that they're never going to have attack buff in Lender Hand. I think she's good and I think she's interesting and I like her, but I still just think you take Thresher.
Yeah, I think Thresher's still the best of the three by a significant margin. But I do think Festival has tactical reasons you would play her over Thresher in a way that I still don't really believe Grange does, outside of incredibly niche situations.
Yeah, like I'd put Festival on the pitch at the local gaming store or game night and know that I can have a good, fun, proactive game when I don't think I could with Grange. I've played New Grange a couple of times and sort of went, okay, that's how that works. I didn't execute it perfectly, but I can see how it goes. You're going back in the box and I never want to play you again because you play a game of Guild Ball that I don't want to play. I want to have to get out of my chair, if nothing else, and measure stuff and move around the pitch and do all that kind of thing, as opposed to I'm going to sit here, present to you a puzzle for you to try and unlock, which is a perfectly valid form of playing the game. It's just not how I like to play the game.
Yeah.
So we're agreed then. Looking at these three, we're agreed that Soma and Numa put alchemists into the very top.
Agreed.
That Vetbox will probably see a increase in play in the Union, and we welcome the return to Union to competitive Guild Ball. And Festival.
I would also like to point out that Union do have the third highest win rate in 4.2 after
55?
Alchemists and Miners. Yeah, 55. It's a ways behind Miners and Alchemists, who are way ahead of everyone. But I expect Union will also be a top 3 guild going forward.
I'm still not convinced, but let's see. Let's see what happens when they get on the table.
Right, I think the race for the Union badge is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Says the man who wants it.
I'm looking forward to doing some flip flopping after my committed relationship with fish since May.
Some form of fishy divorce. So let us do a thing that we've not done on this channel before. Let us do a tier list.
Sadly, at this point, I do literally have to bow out.
I know you have to bail because there are things that you need to attend to, and that's fine. Ben, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you feel better
thanks,
soon.
Guys.
Enjoy the football.
Enjoy the match.
See you guys later. Have fun.
Connor, then. So we're your top 3. The S tier, if you like. I'm going to grab a piece of paper. Let's. If I'm right, you're saying Alchemists. And then who else in your top tier?
I personally think Alchemists, Union, and Morticians are the top 3.
Union, Union because of the changes that VCG brings, allowing them to have kick-off pressure.
I think Union. I think VCG brings more to Union than Numa and Soma do to Alchemists.
I kind of agree with that in so much as, like, I was joking with Ben at the weekend and I was saying, look, I think they're fine. Vet Catalyst killed all of my team in one activation last week and he's going to kill all of my team in one activation this week, which is a facetious thing, and I fully admit that
it's not that far off, though.
But it's not far off the truth. But in terms of impact on the game, all of a sudden being able to have a kickoff game, which Union did not have.
Going from below average to one of the top 3 kickoffs in the game is massive.
Okay. So we've got Alchemists and Union at the top of Mount Olympus. Is anyone joining them?
Yeah, Morticians. Scalpel is still busted.
Okay, like now, Morticians are like as we mentioned earlier. Morticians are a team that haven't been played a great deal, and it's funny because I was talking to a man who's been mentioned a couple of times in this podcast already, Steve Cole, last night, and I was like, "Where is the counter pick? Like, where is the team that, if you want to go against the meta, which is quite frequently what I enjoy doing, taking the teams that are good into the teams which are good, which makes sense because you're going to see them more often." He was straight away Scalpel. Scalpel, like her ability to just reach out and murder someone. Like she will happily murder Vetcat in one activation, take down Soma in one activation.
Mm-hmm. I do think Morts are slightly worse in this meta than they were in the previous one, where I think I would have had them as the top guild in the game. I think Scalpel is still one of the strongest captains in the game. Her flexibility is crazy. The support pieces like Casket around her are crazy. Her hit and run game is still amazing. I actually had Morticians as the top team in the game. And I think the only other team I had in top tier before was Engineers, who I think get knocked down by some of these changes. And I think Scalpel may struggle into Vet Greed, but I'm not sure about it. And I think Scalpel is still very good into Alchemists, which is important. And honestly, when Morticians are played perfectly, they're just so hard to beat.
And Scalpel was always very good into Veteran Rage anyway.
Exactly.
So how do so that's is there anyone else on the top tier, or is that what we're looking at? Yeah, this is the Alchemist Union Morticians meta.
I think so, but if there were two teams that could crack it, one is Engineers, who I had in top tier prior to this, but I actually think Soma and Veteran Captain Greed are both very good into them. So I knock them down slightly.
And I guess the other one is Masons?
It is not.
Okay.
I did have Masons high for a long time, but I think the new meta has pushed them down quite a bit. No, the next one is Miners, because I honestly don't know what to do with Miners. They've got by far the highest win rate in the game still. They have multiple top players who've played them who think they're borderline broken. But they just have so few games in the hands of not really good players in this current game. It's really hard to tell.
So are we
they're a weird team.
So are we saying Engineers and Miners are at tier A?
Yeah, I would have Engineers, Miners. Let me just pull up the guilds. Engineers, Miners, Hunters. I would have Hunters very high up there as well. Steeljaws. Incredible.
I don't think Hunters have been impacted by any of these three captains.
That's a good question. No, I think you're right. I don't think the changes are that relevant to Hunters, other than Union being better means you probably play more Skatha potentially. But I don't know about that. But either way, Steeljaw's incredible, and Theron and Skatha are both really good.
Yeah. They've been consistently the strongest, amongst the strongest trio of captains in Season 4 since Steeljaw was released. Like, the moment Steeljaw was released, we were sat here saying she's going to be very, very good for people that are good with Hunters, and I don't think that's changed. Yeah. And if anything, we've been quite vindicated on our position on our Hunters since they were introduced. The world caught up to our insight, if I may blow our horn for a moment. Anyone else on tier A? I don't
I think you can argue there's about either 3 or 4 more teams or none, depending how many tiers you want to make.
Let's do a tier A, a tier B, and then a bottom tier.
Okay, so if we're doing 4 tiers, I would probably have Fishermen, Masons, and Farmers in tier A as well.
I'd agree with that. I think Masons were...
I think they're a little worse off than those top 3, but not by that much.
No, I think Masons were top tier in 4.2, but I think... these captains, more perhaps than anywhere else, these captains are impacted by... Masons are impacted more by the introduction of these captains than anyone else, which is incredible to say because Honor is so strong.
Yeah, I agree there. And I think actually Fish are hit hard by this as well. Not so much Soma, but Festival and Greed, both the amount of kickoff pressure they combine with the amount of damage output makes receiving for Fish a bit of a problem, which is something I found they struggle with in some matchups anyway.
Line dancing also is a really nice counter tech piece to Shark's legendary.
Yeah. And again, Greed being able to play +4 move inch models also kind of nullifies Shark's legendary.
Yep.
And kicking off with a model that can reposition itself also kind of nullifies you guys break the surface.
Okay, yeah, fair point.
So, but I would still have them A tier because I still think they're really, really good.
Yeah.
That I think is. I'm trying to basically look to see if I would have any other minor guilds in A tier. But I don't think I would. I'm not as high on the Cook's Guild as some people are. I think their good matchups are really good, but I don't think their bad matchups do exist still. So into B tier, I would have pretty much the vast majority of the guilds left. So I would have blacksmiths, brewers, butchers, cooks,
the bees,
rat catchers, order. I think that's it.
So brewers, butchers, smiths, cooks, order, and rats.
Yeah. So basically, the bottom of the major guilds and the top of the minor guilds outside of miners.
Yep.
And then bottom tier would be navigators and falconers. And I think they're clearly the two weakest teams in the game. They're not bad.
They're fun.
They're fun.
They are fun.
And they have winning matchups. But I do think they're the two teams I most would like to see some quality of life buffs in the next errata.
Yep, that's all 17. So we have Alchemist, Union, Morticians at the top. And do we think really that Morticians are the counter pick?
Yeah, I think... Well, it depends how popular Union become, I guess.
Oh, I think Alchemists... I think Morticians are a great pick into Alchemists as well.
Yeah.
Not just Scalpel being able to reach out and touch someone however she likes, but also being able to mess with their activation order. Being
miners.
Yeah. Say again.
I also think miners are a very good counter pick to this meta. They're so fast, so maneuverable. Mule just completely shuts down people's kickoffs. There's a reason they have the highest win rate in the game, and it's not just because Fraser and Coomer were playing them.
There's a reason they're currently on my painting table. Cool. I think that's about it for us. Connor
and actually, one more quick one. I think another big dark horse, more in the UK, because I think they're more popular elsewhere, is definitely Hunters. Because I think Steeljaw is one of the most powerful captains in the game as well, and I think Skatha is really good into Union. The only issue with Hunters is I think Smoke is super good into them. But if the meta shapes up where Alchemists end up playing Midas Soma, I think Hunters will be very good for it.
I think Skatha really falls down the second there is something like something which changes your influence maths. So your close controls, your gluttonous mass, or what's the word? Resilience.
Gluttonous mass one isn't as bad because you can pop it with other people. But close control is definitely a problem.
Close control, like Skatha is impacted by close control perhaps more than any other striker captain. And Union don't have any, if I remember rightly. They've got Braced, I suppose. Yeah, Benediction is still a pain to get stuff off, but
but you only need one hit. That's the thing.
Yeah. And then she's got that momentous double dodge on one, and she's gone.
Yeah.
At that point. Interesting. Connor, thank you very much for joining me on this. As we complete the cycle and look at these three captains. I look forward to hearing your exploits with veteran Captain Greed, and I look forward to trying to decide what it is I'm going to play now that Masons are about to have an awful time. Perfect. Conor, thank you very much, buddy.
Yep.
Handy listeners, such as you are, thank you for listening, and as ever, I need a better outro.
Oh my God. Becky, look at his beard. It's just so beard.
Obey the beard! Behold the beard! Obey the beard!